Welcome back, everyone, to the ArcLight League. We have another week of action for you. We've got some great games this week, and I am joined by Peter, resident Kano master and a leader of the Wizard Council. Is that right, Peter?
Yes, that is true. The Wizard Council representing.
Yeah, representing. And one of those members that I would describe of the Wizard Council is going to be putting Kano on display. That's Majin Bey. But he's going to have his work cut out for him because he's up against Chris Yali on Prism. So let's go ahead and jump down into that game and see how this unfolds. Starting things off, I believe we're going to kick things off right away as you see both heroes less than 40 health because they're both playing very powerful heroes. Isn't that right?
Yeah, both powerful heroes, power hero abilities. We're looking at Majin canoeing and then coming in with a red tome from his hand, drawing two. Oh, looks like he hit the eye off the top, and that's why he didn't banish anything on the original Kano here. That's pretty unfortunate, especially at the very beginning of this game. Don't want to see that happen of hitting just the one brick in the entire deck, but looks like he opts and sees a red snapback coming in here, 4-3.
And if you're sitting down as Kano, you're feeling pretty decent into most matchups, but tell me how you feel into Prism Awakener of Soul.
Oh, this is by far the worst matchup for Kano in the entire game here. This one's a little bit rough, I won't lie. Um, it basically, no matter any time that you want to sit down, you're pretty fine playing anything. But this is the one where it is pretty rough. This one is the one that is pretty rough here. So
And
looks like
do keep in mind, I want to point this out. On the side of Prism, we do have AB2. We've also got Spell Void available on the Halo of Illumination, as well as some Ward available. So there's a lot of ways to get around the arcane damage of Kano. And then you combine that with powerful plays like Genesis, which we see being played out here at the end of turn 0. And yes, Chris's camera is currently frozen, but honestly, that's probably his face right now as he resolves Genesis on turn 0, being passed on over to him.
Yeah, if that was if this was the turn 0 versus Kano that I got, that would have been my face as well. Yeah, this is one of traditionally the worst because you can't really wildfire combo in this matchup because of all of the spell void and the ward spells. Is actually uniquely why this is one of the few matchups that Kano actually plays Waning Moon in instead of Crucible, because Waning Moon allows you to get through some of those spectral shields and those all those ward effects, and popping them through that, when you wouldn't be able to do that if you just had a Crucible and not having the extra coming in with spell. So it looks like Majin blocks for 7 on the first one, but he's going to take that second Herald hit because he just can't block that one out because he has that E-Pot in his hand. Um,
Yeah, blue potion in hand plus the Aether Wildfire. He had a 2 Aether Wildfire hand previously, but like you mentioned, this isn't really that game plan. You can't really establish multiple Aether Wildfires unless you've really set up some insane stuff. Nevertheless, we are able to play out Aether Spindle Red from Arsenal, a fantastic card in every matchup.
Yeah, either Spindle, one of the best cards in that Kano deck, being able to opt for the amount of damage it deals. One of the ways you can get a whole bunch of a whole bunch of key cards in combination on a lot of the turns. Just since at 4, I think it's Arsenal's that wildfire that he that we know that's in his hand. And then Chris is going to start his turn with obviously Genesis trigger, putting that spectral shield, that herald into his soul, and then getting that spectral shield, and then coming in for this red herald protection here,
Yeah,
4/7.
very dangerous attack because on hit, this 7 attack Herald is going to go to Soul. It's going to be able to tutor out a Figment from the deck, but it's also going to create another Spectral Shield. And every time you get a Spectral Shield on the board, that is just making the Kano's life that much harder because if you want to push any on damage effects with your own cards, things like, well, if you look up at his hand down, up there, like a Sonic Boom, you're going to have to carve away some of these permanents on the board, like the Aegis Archangel of Protection that was just created.
Yeah, especially because he does have that AB2 as well, so a lot of the spells to get even through the spectral shields or that ward here is going to have to be 3 plus in of itself. Looking like there's going to be an angel swing here for 4 that does have go again, and then into another herald for 5 here at the end step here. Imagine needs multiple spells to even get through to get through these 2 spectral shields and this awakened figment here, and plus the AB2 here before you can even think about trying to combo or anything like that. So
And keep in mind, he's Kanoing off the top here, playing a blue Aether Dart. Not exactly what you want to find off the top, but keep in mind as well that he's already sitting at a measly 14 life, starting the game off at 30 against a hero that can just throw big attacks, especially when you don't have the availability of poppers, is a dangerous prospect. And this is going to connect. It's going to trigger Prism's effect. She's going to allow another tutor of another figment from the deck, and things are going to get basically go from bad to worse here for Majin Bay on top.
Yeah, it's unfortunate that he couldn't be able to kin off the top a little bit before because you might have been able to make him sack that angel because of the waiting moon. In response, if you did it that way, if you hit anything that was two cost or higher to be able to get over the spectral shields as well. But looks like he's just gonna tome on his turn, draw two cards, and then it's gonna start with a waiting moon for two here.
Yeah, going to send the Waning Moon after playing Tome. Of course, this is not Tome from Arsenal, so we're not gaining the life. We're instead just activating the Waning Moon, playing out the Scalding Rain, trying to carve out some of those Spectral Shields and maybe take Aegis, Archangel of Protection, off the board. With the board state management at a premium in this deck, and really you don't have very much of it, trying to send even just a blue spell at the right time can really do a lot of work, and that's perhaps one of your only avenues in this matchup.
Yeah, he did get two cards out of Chris's hand here, which is pretty close to what he wants to do this entire game. Trying to get those cards out of his hand because then you won't take as much damage on the back end. That will give you a little bit of space. But looks like Chris is gonna start out with a just the swing of the protection for four here, to get through. Washington had a unique chance if he hit one of those red spells off the top, but unfortunately hits a blue scalding. So he can't just pop this angel here. So just gonna block for three on this, go to eight here. Already at such a low life total.
And not much going on the rest of that turn. Only one card left in hand, so not much available there. But the wall is well and truly set up. We've got four Spectral Shields. AB2 is in play. You have Spell Void. You've got an Aegis Archangel of Protection on the board with Ward 4. You've got Empyrean Rapture with Ward. Basically, you've got an entire wall of defenses up against exactly this hero. And he's going to have to claw his way through all of those defenses before he can actually put some damage down on the board.
Yeah, he does a pretty good job of dealing with four spectral shields on this turn with the double three with the lesson, getting AB2, taking one of the spectral shields out, and then another three from the snapback here. But as you can see in his hand, this is not exactly what he wants to see. Another snapback with a lesson and a spindle, but we're taking eight, looking like eight damage here from this War Torn Herald as well, only being able to block three and go to three. See what else Kamaji can do if he can even get past this Herald, getting another Figment as well.
Yeah, and then bringing that Figment down. This is most likely, it looks like Figment of Ravages, which is going to ask for Arcane Barrier activations, or otherwise he's just going to take two, which is exactly what he does, excuse me. And he may end up just choosing to flip and send, and it looks like he's going to flip and send Soraya, Archangel of Erudition, and sending that damage across. Has the soul available when this attacks to banish a card. Let's see if he chooses to do so. But before he does, we're going to have a Kano activation with that Potion of Deja Vu. It doesn't block anyway, and we're sitting at two, and things are not feeling quite good. Both of them chuckling, knowing that this is so one of those last gasp Kano moves, isn't it?
Yeah, one of those last house Kano moves hits a Aether Arc at the top. What he was really hoping for is if he hits a one cost spell here, he would have to sack his other angel, and then you could Waning Moon for three, and then make it so he has to sack this angel as well. So he would basically be blocking the entire four and getting rid of both of the wards, which was the hope. But unfortunately, he still has that one spectral shield from the Genesis from this turn, and only hits a 0 for 1 with that Aether Arc. So even if he Waning Mooned, he could just sack the other angel here, and this four would still come in, and then he would go to one. But that's the line he's going to go with. He's going to Waning Moon. Chris is probably just going to sack the other angel so he doesn't lose the four damage on this one,
Yep.
and then the snapback's going to come in to be able to just to block for three and go to one here from Majin.
Unfortunately, I don't know if he has the resources to actually play the snap back, so he's going to block there. Yep, it is going to come in, and he's going to one. And unfortunately, off of the draw, he has the damage, and he shakes the hand. That is just too much for Kano to deal with. It's a uniquely difficult matchup and a very and oftentimes one-sided affair, and unfortunately, it turned out to be that way. When you get to start as Prism in a favored matchup with a Genesis on turn 0, and you make your Kano opponent go first, that feels pretty good, doesn't it?
Yeah, it feels really good. Yeah, some very unique things have to happen for Kano to be able to beat Prism in this eco structure, and Genesis on turn 0, not one of those cases for Kano. So unfortunately, Majin going to be taking the loss here against Chris Ayali. Unfortunate for the Kano Council, but we'll have to come back next week for it.
Yeah, so a quick game one, but don't go too far because we have more games down the pipeline and some really really good ones, some spicy ones. So you don't want to stray too far. We'll be right back after this.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to ArcLight League Week 4. Today I have Taylor Crawford joined with me. We have a good game in store for you all. We're going to have Aelia Adams on KO and Nathan Crawford on Bravo. But before I get into the match more, I'd like to welcome Taylor, and I'll let him say a few words.
Hey there, my name is Taylor. I'm a professional Flesh and Blood player, depending on how you use the word professional, apparently. And yeah, I'm just excited to be here and help cast the game with Vero.
Yep, so as I mentioned, we're going to get right into the game right now. But as we switch over there, we're going to have 18-time battle-hardened winner Aelia, known as possibly the best player in the world for about 2 weeks, according to our favorite Watch Flake, versus Nathan Crawford, 18-time bubbler, known as the worst best player, according to everybody else. And so I'm excited to see two players of this caliber going into it. We're going to have Bravo with a fist and a shield versus KO with just one measly little arm.
Oh, what is your opinion on this matchup going into this?
So at a baseline, this seems like a very like a quintessential aggro matchup. Think something like Fi. Guardian versus Fi is like they're going to throw a lot of damage at you, but Guardian at any time could leverage their armor, throw a big disruption attack back like Crippling Crush or Spinal. Bravo, of course, has the ability to throw Dominate on top of anything. The problem with that is when you go up against something like a KO, they have one of the best fridges in Flesh and Blood right now, so it's really hard to pick your spots when you want to use your armor, when you want to take your damage, and when you really want to go in there. As we're going to see just Nathan block out the first turn, fix up his hand a little, and kind of what happens with Guardians a lot. You see your really shiny attack like Crippling Crush, you really want to play it, you block out accordingly, and you draw just a few too many reds, as we're going to see Nathan throw Debilitate and possibly Arsenal with Sink Below.
Yeah, I think if we see this trap of just blocking with 2 cards, throwing 2 cards repeated throughout the game, we will see Rhea slowly just snowball this game into a win.
Yeah, for sure. It's really hard to just throw your. Ideally, with the Bravo, especially the Tunic list that we see Nathan playing here, you're going to want to do your 1-card 8s usually, and that's going to give you a lot of value. But eventually, as you mentioned, Ray is going to be able to leverage her armor, as we're going to see the new Apex Bonebreaker come in with the 6 block, get you that might. She already had the agility, and so now she's going to come in with a pretty wide turn with a lot of extra damage on top, and Nathan can only block so much. Fortunately for him, we're going to see double sync belows here, so he's going to be able to leverage those in a way to where he's going to be able to block out breakpoints quite effectively this turn. Unfortunately, we don't have a Tunic coming up, so a Chokeslam Disable's not in the cards for Nathan.
Yeah, so he's probably just looking like to minimize damage here and throw either Titan's Fist or throw a clunky 3-card 8, which he's probably looking not to do.
Yeah, as you mentioned, with the 3-card 8s and the loadout in general, it seals a lot of Guardians. For a while, we're just always on Anathos. That was always the thing you played because it works well with Rouse the Ancient, Zealous Spell, things of that nature. Going into an aggro matchup, though, we're going to see shields coming out from Guardians more and more, which is still a very contentious thing for a lot of Guardians. Some people still like to stick with the Anathos in a matchup like KO, thinking if you give them too much room and you do try to block them out too much, they may snowball you with the new things like Agility and Cast Bones.
Yeah, but like even with Anathos, you still have the powerful 3-card Tear Sunder turns, which can eat armor, on turns 2, 3, and 4. With the hammer, you don't have those quite as pivotal turns, due to you could be able to block with one piece of equipment and a card from hand because it's only 5. Those are certain things that we'll definitely see throughout this game.
For sure, as we're going to see Nathan use the Civic Steps block here. So Civic Steps, obviously a pretty new item, or equipment, excuse me, rather, for Guardians coming out in the Round Table set. It obviously has more block than the old Iron Rot legs, but what it does lose out on is it gives an agility. But the nice part about that is versus a hero like KO is when they start, it gives a quicken, not an agility, as we see an agility on the board. You're kind of able to freely use it in this matchup more so than others, because if they already have an agility at the beginning of the turn, you block with your Civic Steps, you give them a quicken, and they essentially both pop at the same time. So you kind of get a little bit ease of use of Civic Steps in this matchup. And speaking of another new equipment, we're going to see Balance of Justice on Nathan's side, which we're going to assume he's going to use on a big Blood Rush Bella turn. The hard part about that armor is blocking with it early effectively and not just throwing it away, and then also knowing which Blood Rush turn is worth popping that Balance of Justice, Taylor.
It's usually the first one, just just to mitigate life totals. But like looking here though, he actually blocked with Civic Steps, and the Civic Steps really punished him by Rhea having the runner in Arsenal. He probably thought that way since she did have an agility at the beginning of turn and started with a Savage Feast. So it was a really good bait from Rhea by waiting to use the runner this turn. So it was a really impressive play.
Right, because the runner, as you mentioned, as pretty much alluded to be more specific for people at home, is that when a runner comes in with Go Again, it gives you an agility. That Go Again does not necessarily need to come from agility itself. So by that runner getting agility by that quick, and Nathan essentially just gave another free agility to start the next turn. Rhea is going to go off an Arsenal here to essentially claim 3 damage. Would have loved to use her Tunic here, but it's fine to get another agility might turn. As we mentioned, we're just going to see the hammer for 4 here. No Anathos in the matchup. Wouldn't have been a difference here, as you probably wouldn't overpitch, because Nathan's next turn is going to be the Tunic on 3 and a 1-card 8. And let's see if he can take back tempo doing that.
Yeah. Being able to block 9 next turn is going to be quintessential, especially to an agility turn to minimize the damage. So he's probably looking to leverage this game into a little bit longer game. The only issue with the longer game as Bravo is that dang claw. The claw is going to get so much value over this game. I assume we are going to see it swing for probably 8 to 11 times. And every time it's thrown, it is a 2-card, 1-card from Bravo's hand. And then he draws this hand, which is a great blocking hand.
Yeah, essentially a very good blocking hand here, as we're going to see Assault and Battery. We're not going to see the beat chest here, so Rhea not trying to roll another agility, as it's looking like she's going to go Claw for 3 with Go Again. Or actually, I don't think she's discarded, so it's really just going to be Swing Big, I guess.
4-card, yeah, the 4-card 8.
Yep.
I mean the 4-card 16, which is a great number.
Yeah, 4-card 16, obviously very good. I was thinking we had Go Again on the Claw, which would have been great, to Claw, Tunic, and then Swing Big, which is like the perfect turn you want to go for, but this is not too bad either, as you mentioned, a 4-card 16 coming in. Nathan fortunately has 2 Fate for scenes, unfortunately has the Pummel, so going to lose little value there, gaining in other places, but most likely going to be able to block 10 this turn and throw 8 in return. And so, blocking 10 on 16 is obviously great and throwing back 8 of your own. But as you mentioned, that claw is going to come in time and time again, sometimes for 3, sometimes for 4, a lot of times for 4 with the new Might token of KO's hero ability. And as you mentioned, the longer the game goes, the more your armor is going to get whittled down from this claw and other attacks, and then eventually you are going to run out of these tempo cards that you can throw back. So Nathan is going to have to find an opportunity to get a big dominate off, or at least a big enough attack that Rhea has to start using this armor early.
Yeah, the Agile Windup, what a card. We've seen this card over and over again in the newer builds of KO. What are your thoughts on the new Agile Windup?
I like all the new wind-up cards for sure. I think the good part about them is that they are very modular. They are pitches in most scenarios, and of course, with KO's hero ability, they count as a 6. Being able to discard them at instant speed, being able to discard them on your opponent's turn, really makes going first and second a very interesting dynamic, and you can have high rolls going either of those. And then, as always, little things like getting hit by a pummel, maybe, or getting hit by any type of discard effect. You could sometimes just discard it and your opponent gets close to no value at it. And even if you don't get the most value out of it, at least you get something. So just a lot of interestingness with the adding instant to it being able to be played on both players' turn. I'm a big fan of both the Agile Windup, more so than the Mighty Windup, but both are still great cards.
Yeah, and if you also notice here, Rhea did pitch a reckless swing. So you think that Nathan is probably keeping track of those reckless swings that he's seeing this game because he might has a possibility for fatigue, or do you think he's kind of just going to try to kill her before we even get to see this one again?
For me, with the Guardian matchups, I feel as if you don't. It's not hard to fatigue the brutes. It's more so that if you're fatiguing them, it needs to be through some type of offensive pivot. Because if you stick with the defensive pivot, they're going to whittle you down and whittle you down. And then, as you mentioned, essentially you are at 38 health. And if they're playing 2 reckless swings, you're essentially at 36 health. So it's really hard to essentially have that 2 or 4 point life deficit and try to go in for the reckless or to play around the reckless swing. So I think there needs to be a point where Nathan's going to take tempo. Fortunately for Nathan here, he was able to block out in such a way where he didn't take too much damage. Is still going to be able to throw his 2-card 8 and get a pummel in his arsenal, and that's the pivot play we're kind of talking about here. As you mentioned, probably going to balance a Justice, a Blood Rush turn.
Yeah, that was a really heads-up play from Rhea. Uh, just making the agility and arsenaling the swing big instead of playing the swing big for 8 value, knowing that it was a Tunic turn coming up, so he actually gets value from blocking. So that was probably what she was trying to mitigate was the value of this Tunic by not allowing him to block 3, just in case it's a bad blue card or something.
Right, of course. Heads up play from both things. Unfortunately, in this case, slight punish on Rhea as she's going to lose some damage here and then give Nathan a power card in his arsenal. But as you
Yeah.
mentioned, sometimes these are the type of plays and the type of like little inches you need in a game to get you ahead of players who are on the same caliber level. As we're going to see these the first on the Scabskin Leather, second on the Apex Bonebreaker. So a lot of early armor blocks coming out here from Rhea as we are only on turn 4, I think. So as we mentioned, these big attacks like Spinal, like Crippling, now just have that much more agency to make it through and get their crush effects online as Nathan's going to leak a little bit of damage here. And as we've mentioned, we've been talking about Rhea and aggro and all these other things. We still see Nathan with an 8-point life lead here. But as we see the cast bones in hand, it's very likely that these life totals can change, and they can change very quick, Taylor.
Yeah, interesting card in Nathan's hand right now is the Sigil of Solace. Because I originally thought that he was going to be playing into a more tempo-based game, but Sigil actually represents that he might have the fatigue plan in mind.
Yeah, for sure. Getting an extra 3 life and potentially up to 9 life. If we see 1, we can assume 3. Putting yourself at 49 life plus all your armor really makes it that much harder for KO to kill you. So it's an interesting strategy to go in with both the Buckler, the Sigils, and I'm assuming we're going to see a full suite of D-Reacts, at least 6, potentially up to 8 or 9, depending on unmovables and staunches and things of that nature. If we're going to see attack come in here for 10 go again, if I'm not mistaken, Rhea took a little bit of a risk there, keeping the cast bones in hand, but it worked out as we're going to see 10 go again, and then a Tunic Claw, and then we're going to follow up the turn with a cast bone. So Nathan's most likely going to, as we see a pretty bad hand on his side, block with 2 cards, play a Sigil, take a Claw, think he's all right, and then he's going to see cast bones come down with no tempo at all to stop it.
Yeah. That was a really risky play from Rhea there regarding the holding cast bones in hand. Kind of an interesting choice there, but I kind of respect the guts.
For sure.
And
I mean, you have the agility and the might rolling through. You have agility and might rolling through at the beginning of the turn. You know you're 8 life points behind, and you just use your armor for this turn. If there's ever a turn that you need to be greedy and a payoff, it was a turn like this, because at the pace we were going, she was falling behind on life, as well as falling behind on armor equity. And so now we're going to see the big attack that took 2 cards. We're going to see a small attack for 3. Nathan most likely going to block this in Sigil, think he's made it out of dodge, and then a Castbone's going to come down with most likely 7 mites and 1 agility.
Yeah. Do you actually think he's going to block here, though, and thinking that maybe there is a bigger attack on the way, such as a Sin Packing or something? Or do you think he is looking ahead and just thinking he should throw 3 here?
I would say most likely I think he's going to block here. He totally couldn't, and he will unfortunately be punished for it. I think just getting the 3 block guaranteed, knowing that he can't block any on hit anyway because the sigil does not have a block value, I feel like you get the guaranteed block here. And if a bigger attack comes through, other than exactly send packing, you really have no agency to block it. And I'm not too sure about using your armor to protect your arsenal, which I think is just a pummel, which is an important card. But is it worth 3 of your armor pieces? Potentially not.
Yeah, like in this matchup, to play out Pommel, you have to usually keep like a 3-card hand or a 2-card CNC Tunic Turn, which just has to line up.
Yeah, especially with the introduction of Fleshbag, probably the best blocking helmet in all of Flesh and Blood right now, both from defensive and offensive gains you get from it. Defensively, it obviously just blocks 2, but that card can block up to 6, 7, 10, 15. You never know that card is that you're taking out of a hand, especially against decks like Katsu or against, things like Guardian, who it's like they have a full hand. Oh, you just took a pummel out of their hand? You might have just saved yourself 7, 8, 9 value. As we see Nation just going to play the Sigil here and pass. Rhea going to come in with her first Blood Rush turn of the game with a Might to boot, rolling into it ×6.
Yeah, I don't know if Nathan's camera is frozen or if that dude is just stone cold. But playing revealing the Blood Rush Bellows here was a pretty scary sight with off the Castbone turn, so it's looking like another good blocking turn. And there's a pulping with it too.
Yep, fortunately for Nathan, as you mentioned, the best balance of Justice turn is usually the first one. Unfortunately, has a 2 block in his hand, but we'll be able to mitigate that a little bit. So I'd expect to see the first attack coming through will most likely be the pulping, I think, because it'll have natural go again anyway. So we're probably going to see the pulping. Nathan's going to really only have the opportunity to block with 1 card, so to be the best opportunity to block with the balance is Justice as well. But we're actually going to see Swing Big coming here for about, 92.
Yeah. I think it's about that number. Maybe 93. Let me check.
Yep, we're going to have 8 plus 6 plus 2, so 16. I was just a little bit off, but 16 the first attack coming through. Kind of smart by Rhea, where she's saying, this is my first big attack, and I know you want a balance of justice, so I'm going to make you give me all your cards up front and have absolutely no agency going forward. And it's very interesting as we see a clash of agility, because if Nathan decides to give up all of his cards, because he has to give up his balance here if he wants to proc it, if he gives up a lot of cards up here, up front, balances his justice into maybe another 2 block, Rhea comes with the claw, Nathan blocks, and then does the clash of agility or something like that, we're going to see a lot more damage leak through on this turn.
Yeah. These are the turns that I think really push the KO Bravo match over the top into KO's favor, is the ability to play an aggressive 60 and a setup 60 in the same 60, which is super powerful. It reminds me a lot of the Lexi playstyle, where she could pivot from a aggro deck into a mid-range setup deck, which is always very strong.
No, 100%. And as you mentioned that, we're going to see a very interesting play from Nathan. He decides after that first attack, sending the Swing Big, he's just going to use his helmet and not block it. And this is a very interesting point. A lot of players may have just thrown down 2 or 3 cards there because they have no clue it's coming after. And Nathan says, and as everybody who plays Brute knows, sometimes you Blood Rush Bellow and you draw into a lot of cards that you just frankly cannot play in the same turn. Nathan now has the option to use some of his armor, use some of his block cards, and throw back maybe up to 14 damage of his own, as we see a Rouse the Ancients and a red Chokeslam and a 5th mystery card that was intimidated. So pretty heads up play here from Nathan saying, I know I'm getting attacked twice, I know I'm going to be able to use all my cards anyway, so let me just take this first bit of damage and see what comes next. Because as we see a yellow being pitched to play to red, this is the end of the turn, so Nathan has everything heads up now to see, can I outvalue this on the rebound?
Yeah, but like with cards like Rouse the Ancients, he also has to be fully aware that Rhea probably knows how to use Fleshbag and end his turn instantly.
For sure, as we mentioned before, just being able to rip cards out of that thing. You think it blocks for 2, but on a Rouse the Ancient turn like this, it could potentially take that Chokeslam out. You lose the Debilitate in the last card and what have you, and all of a sudden you are cards down, and you just took a bunch of damage to go 7, go again past turn. Fortunately for Nathan, as we both know, he has the Pummel in Arsenal, which is the best place for it to be. As if I had a guess, and if there's a blue banish, we're going to see a block for 6 here, a Chokeslam double pitch blue, and then a Pummel to follow it up. Nathan's still counting that out in his head himself, but I did not see the card that was intimidated. If it was a red, it makes this block a lot more awkward, because you can only block 3 if you want to make said play. Fortunately, you can arsenal the red that was intimidated, but I don't know if that's going to be enough, as Nathan's most likely going to have to go down to 16 to make this play. I hope it's a blue in the intimidate zone for his benefit.
Yeah, I can physically see Nathan sweating here. Definitely nervous.
Yeah, nervous indeed. I mean, the alternative, of course, is if it is a red, is to block 6 here, take 2, go to 20, and just send the choke slam back with the blue and a red and save the pummel for another day. Unfortunately for Nathan, he knows we have the flesh bag, we have the scab skins, and we're giving Rhea an arsenal of her own with the might rolling in. That may just not be enough because it might just eat 1 or 2 cards, and then we get a 3-card play coming back. And being this much life behind this early in the game with reckless swings and 2 blood rush bellows already in the deck is definitely a very scary proposition, Taylor.
Yeah, yeah. Nathan's definitely taking his time with this one. I'd be calling a judge over by now, but
Yeah, I mean, you got to watch out from these people. You know, people from the South, you know how they are. They're just taking their time, moseying over, nothing going on in their small town. So Nathan just making us all patiently wait to all do what we know is going to happen, and it's going to be a block 6 and send a choke slam with a pummel. But Nathan's going to think it out, you know, bring out his abacus math, maybe open up the stream really quick. Is it Wednesday yet? It might be. And so we're just going to have to wait and see as Rhea is probably, I don't know, designing a new Icelander on the screen as we speak, maybe doing some homework. It's really hard to tell as it's just 8, Nathan.
yeah, it's just 8. Just, take the damage and throw it back. That's how this game works.
Yeah, but you know, Abacus Crawford is you know, he'll really get in the weeds sometimes, and he'll always be wrong at the end of the day. But you know, that's why we love him.
Yeah. Yeah. That's all I got.
Couldn't have said it better if I was myself.
Yeah.
As we're just gonna sit here and have fun. But speaking of Guardian versus Brute, where are you at, Taylor, and what deck you may or may not be bringing to the Pro Tour, and how you feel about its Brute matchups?
It has awful brute matchups. That's all I'm gonna say. I'm gonna gym dodge all day.
Okay, so you're playing. You're playing Arachne. Got it. Thanks for the information. As we finally see the block come out here, the interesting block though, we're all wrong. Nathan's smarter than us all. He's gonna block with the red card here. So either Nathan is completely given up and wants out, or the card that was intimidated was another red card, which I'm not too sure about. But we're gonna see it come back to hand here, and it was a Starstruck. Interesting.
Yeah, so he decided that he just wanted to pummel a Starstruck. I mean, because if you pummel a Starstruck, that's 14. You have to have. You can't even play Pulverize at that rate. That's insane.
Right, so we were all wrong, and by we I mean you and I and the thousands of people watching at home. We were all wrong. It was a yellow, not a red that was banished, but the Starstruck is probably the best one here as we're going to get full use out of all 3 of our blue pitches. And then as you mentioned, a pummel on top of this essentially says, I'm taking tempo back, and not only am I taking tempo back, you are not getting a turn. So Rhea has 2 options. She could full block here and just essentially pass the turn, but then live to fight against pummeled another day, or block this in such a way where she can play around it and still get value out of her turn. Fortunately, we're going to see a Cast Bones in her hand. I wouldn't be surprised if we see a block for somewhere between 5 and 6 here, get pummeled, discard something else, play Cast Bones, and say, do it again, Nathan.
So to be fair, outside of the Cast Bones, there is a block value of 6 in that hand, and 2/3 of it isn't 1 card. So she can block 2 with the Mighty Windup, and then Reckless and hope it hits the pulping, and then play the Cast Bones. That's probably what she's looking at right now.
Yep.
Yeah, it's a rough hand for the Starstruck to be coming in.
Right, it's a very awkward blocking hand as Pulping has no block value, Mighty Windup has 2, obviously Cast Bones has 3, but we're looking to play that card, and Reckless Swing as an additional cost makes you discard a card at random, unfortunately. So just another, 33, 66% or whatever it's going to be that Rhea's going to have to take this game. We saw the first one pay off in the Bear Fangs, discarding the 6, keeping the Cast Bones, and just one more play, Brute Gaming. No gambler's gloves here, but we might as well take every gamble we can. As you mentioned, the only block value you're probably going to get is from this Reckless Swing. Unfortunately, it might come at a huge cost.
Yeah. Those are the risks you play when you play such a good deck like KO, is that sometimes you just can't block.
Sometimes you just can't block, and sometimes you just can't break those cuffs, as we only see one arm over there on KO's side. Rhea thinking this out, probably going through what we're going through. Is it worth blocking 2 and just calling it what it is? Is it worth taking this risk? Will I fall too far behind? Fortunately for Rhea, she is 12 health up, but no matter what happens, these life totals are going to go to parity very quickly. Even with the 6 block, with the pummel on top, going to take 8, going to be 21 to 17. Cast Bones the best thing we got in retaliation here.
Yeah, she might even just be thinking about blocking the 5 and then recklessing him for the extra 2 to represent the 11 value off the Starstruck because the 2 damage off of Reckless. So that might be a plan that she's looking into also.
Right, block 5 here with 2 cards, play the Reckless, do 2 damage in return, block it out for 9 essentially. Even if you get pummeled, you're just robbing Nathan of a little bit of value because you're not discarding anything. The good part about that play that you just mentioned is Nathan's not going to know that. He's going to see a block for 5, assume something, a 2 for 8's coming back. He's going to fire off the pummel. Ray is going to fire off the Reckless Swing, get the 2 damage as you mentioned, and Nathan's going to have this one big power turn that's ultimately only going to deal about 5 damage, and he's going to take 2 in return.
Yeah, I just cannot believe that he didn't telegraph this pummel like this, where he just took, 5 damage last turn to throw back a Starstruck with 2 floating.
Yeah, I don't know how Rhea probably can't see this coming. It's just actually, I think she no blocked. I think she said, I don't want to take any of these risks. I don't want to do anything. I'm just going to get pummeled in the face. Or we're going to see a Reckless Swing and she's going to hope to not get 33% screwed over here with the discard. I'm wondering if Nathan just might let this hit because realistically, if you're just going to take 10, you have no turn unless you have, I don't know, something that costs 11 in your hand as Brute.
Yeah, that's exactly what Nathan's saying right here. He's like, hey, did you misclick through priority? She says no. He goes, are you sure? And then we're just seeing them talk back and forth about this.
Yep. As we see Nathan grinning smile, showing us the guns. That's an ex-Navy man right there. If you can't tell,
Weatherman.
Hoorah. Yeah, hoorah. Yeah, weather. As we see Big Briar back there looking in disgust as Nathan's playing Guardian, and Nathan giggling. If you've ever played against Nathan, it's like the worst experience ever. He likes to talk to you and like think he's funny. It's really a miserable experience all around, and that's probably what Ray is having to endure right here, and it's really unfortunate for her.
Yeah, I'm actually kind of surprised that she didn't play like a C tier hero into Nathan.
Yeah, Nathan does have an affinity for C tier heroes, and by an affinity, I mean an affinity for being wrong. Usually at Ray's benefit and at his demise. As we see a little table talk going back here, Rhea pointing over at Nathan through the screen, saying, "You bastard, please just play the pummel." As we are just going to be, as we are on about hour 2 of this broadcast, I think, and we are 6 turns deep, but Nathan has about a whole slew of things still going through chat right now. I wish we could see the Talishar chat. I don't know. We might be overloading the servers at this point.
Yeah. When we get to game time, we'll definitely see parity.
Yeah, it'll be a very good chess clock. It'll be like a grandmaster versus my mother, who is a grandmother, but not a grandmaster, unfortunately. So she would be taking about as much time as Nathan is right here. As Rhea just going to take the 10. Nathan saying, I'm going to let you take the 10. Rhea's going to discard, play a Cast Bones, and unfortunately have a hand of, pulping and Reckless Swing. But this is a very interesting call here, essentially saying, do it to me again, Nathan. Because sometimes with Guardians, you get that big turn and you never find the follow-up. Unfortunately for Rhea, we see a pretty good follow-up here in both Spinal Crush, Double Pitch Blue. Rhea's going to throw her Flesh Bag in front, thinking she's going to save herself. Nathan's going to Tunic and Pummel. That will be my guess for the turn, Taylor. What do you see from a hand like this?
I can see the CNC also. The pure fact that Rhea probably knows that there's a pummel in Arsenal after the 45-minute pause there. So she's probably very aware of this pummel. So I don't expect to see a flesh bag here. More than anything, I would probably expect to see a block of 6, or maybe a block of 3 on the spinal. She'll take the hit, and then she'll play the pulping for a bajillion.
Right, a bajillion is a good number for sure. It is slightly more than the 96 you threw before. But I'm interested in the spinal play only because it comes in for 9 innately, so you have to respect that to a degree, otherwise you will lose go again, and you will lose a lot of value on your turn. The reason I don't like the CNC as much is because it doesn't even have to get blocked at all. It may just get pummeled, you lose a card or two, and you still get to get a 3-card play back with 6 mites coming through. That's kind of a lot. As Nathan's going to opt for the spinal here, and the secondary reason I like this play is you get to Tunic Pummel no matter how Rhea blocks, with or without the Flesh Bag, and still get a strong arsenal in the CNC no matter what, which is probably going to have a lot of value if this spinal does connect for its Crush effect, which says, go again, no more. But even a Claw is coming in for 9 damage next turn, whether Nathan likes it or not.
Yeah, but she's probably looking into playing that pulping either from Arsenal or from hand. Probably the one from hand to keep the one from Arsenal still in the Arsenal. So we will have to see how she blocks this. I will assume that she will block for 3, take 9, and then pulping for a bajillion.
Hoping for a bajillion, definitely a big number. Or Rhea, Master of Wizardry, may say no blocks yet again on Nathan Crawford, and then what shall he do? At this point,
Cry.
I think you have to pummel it at this point. But putting your opponent to 10 and saying here's another turn that you don't get to play more than one card might also seem good. As we're gonna have, just to catch people up here, a 19-17 game. Nathan threw a big Starstruck last turn, essentially freezing Rhea's turn completely as it connected for 10 damage. Rhea fortunately had a very good turn of instant pitch a mighty windup, getting two mites, as we see 8 on that side of the board, and playing the cast bones. All that can play through Starstruck's effect, because Starstruck says for the damage you've taken, you cannot play cards with base equal or less than that. So we're giving the same gambit to Nathan again, or Nathan is giving the same gambit to Rhea again in the Spinal Crush for 9.
You think Nathan misses Briar?
I think Nathan misses a lot of things. I think he misses the boats. I think he misses Briar. I think he misses the war. But unfortunately, the Avatar ended all that, as we're going to see the flesh bag come out here. Maybe Rhea thinking the pummel is in hand here, or just finally trying to get value out of it. We all know
Yeah.
that's not going to be the case, unfortunately.
Yeah. So I think the play here was to do that. She's going to discard the either Reckless or Sin Packing. She's going to play the Pulping and Arsenal the other Pulping. Or at least keep the one in Arsenal in Arsenal.
For sure, as we're most likely going to see... Yeah, it's interesting here because you can't use the Reckless here because then you lose essentially 2 cards for playing the Reckless. So as you mentioned, just going to have to discard, which I'm going to assume will be the Send Packing. Going to play the Pulping from hand, pitching the Reckless, coming in for, what is this going to be, 15 or 14, can only block with 1 card. And going to bring these life totals to parity yet again. Fortunately for Nathan, though, he is now winning that armor war that we discussed at the beginning of the game. Rhea has used just about every last piece of armor she has other than her tunic, which obviously is also an offensive weapon, so you don't want to block with it too soon. Nathan, fortunately, has the new Gauntlets of Iron Will, which don't really do too much against KO, as we don't see many attack reactions coming out, but they will give him a 3 life buffer, as well as his Buckler. We're actually going to see the Send Packing
Wow.
for 14, not only to come in for a big number, but to essentially say whatever you just arsenaled is no longer going to be there, so we were both wrong.
Wow, that was a great play from her. I would never saw that line.
Yep, just took the damage, discarded the Pulping, doesn't block anyway, so might as well get it the heck out of your deck. Swing back for 14, Nathan going to use all of his cards, plus his armor that we just mentioned, that he has an abundance of, slowly whittling away, but going to get a pretty good amount of value here. That hand does not do much offensively, that armor needed to be used eventually, blocking clean round numbers there, putting that CNC right back into Arsenal for yet another pummel play in the future, as we're going to see his Tunic tick to 1, Rhea is on 3, as she's going to start with the Pulping for 6.
That was a really heads-up play from Rhea.
Yeah, heads up indeed, as it just resets the turn cycle, keeps the life totals close, but now she puts tempo back on her side, and essentially with this attack going to say, here's 6, you can really only block 3 unless you want to start whittling away your armor, which is the one advantage Nathan has right now. You may think the life totals, Nathan has a little bit of an advantage, and obviously 17 is bigger than 12. The difference with Bravo is, other than keeping a big hand of 3 to 4 cards, it's really hard to push through that little bit of damage quickly. However, Brood, on the other hand, can push through a lot of damage, and they can do it very quickly.
Yeah, they can do a 2-card 10 while Bravo has a 4-card 8. So we'll definitely see that play out throughout this game.
Yep, so Nathan's going to need to find one more big turn, as we do kind of see a big turn in his hand with another Starstruck, Terra Sunder, of course. All non-attack actions in Nathan's hand, so the really only big attack he could play is Starstruck, but as he mentioned, that's going to take about 3 cards here, as Tunic is not in sight, as we only see it on 1. The CNC, of course, still in pummel, the CNC is still in Arsenal, no pummel, unfortunately. I wouldn't be surprised if we see a block for 9 this turn with Nathan's cards, and just a send back for 6.
Yeah, I agree.
Another CNC coming through from Rhea. Powerful card CNC all over the place this game, and then new CNC, send packing, brute CNC, if you will, as it's almost better than it. I mean, obviously you can D-react to it, but it's a card that comes in for 7 a lot because of might. It is a card that works with Blood Rush Bellow. It works with any other type of brute, affinity cards you may have, and it's really having 6 copies of CNC seems pretty good for brute. and we can understand why not only is it a great aggro deck, it has some of the best disruption between its equipment suite and its cards.
Yeah, so what's your opinion on the Assault and Battery cycle in heavy hitters?
The Assault and Battery, I think, is very good. It gives you a big advantage going first. It is obviously just do a lot of damage for one card, as it is base 7 attack. Unfortunately, it costs 3, so it does require a blue. But being able to start the game or make use of very weak cards in your hand and converting them into an agility can give you anywhere from 3 damage from a claw or 8 damage to a swing big. So it's really hard to put an exact number on it, but it is a very, very strong effect where otherwise as Brute, you would just rot cards in your hand or overpitch to cycle your hand. Now you have a very big use for your bad quote-unquote cards. As you mentioned, we're going to see an attack for 8, taking out a blue card out of our deck, which was an Agile Windup, going to beat our chest, get a Might, get an Agility, swing through for a big number, arsenal a big card.
Yeah, I mean, this is a great looking turn for both sides. The Tunic counters coming to 3, so we're probably going to see a 2-card Debilitate, and then a 6 block here, take 2, go to 12, throw 8. More than likely, he probably wanted to draw a Pummel here to complement the CNC and Arsenal, but he did not draw it. So he's probably just looking at the basic Bravo play of Tunic 4 cost.
Yep, Tunic Bravo kind of been around for here and there. People argued tech plating, Tunic, which one was the play. And then as we saw towards the tail end of last year, Michael Hamilton and others playing Tunic Bravo, doing very well across a multitude of events from the Realm 20K, good, respectable showings at Worlds, and of course Callings and Battle Hardens terrorizing all over the United States and other countries. So Tunic Bravo, Tunic Guardian in general, really the new wave. Tech plating seems to be getting left behind at the moment because you need this Tunic to take the tempo back when you can. Tech plating a very good card to keep rolling the tempo, but the second you lose it, it becomes very inefficient, other than the 3 block that it does give you.
Yeah, and it looks like he's going to take the Guardian play of the 2-card 8, which is a really strong line. But with the agility, we see a Savage Feast in hand, which means that he's probably not wanting to block this Debilitate.
Yeah, it's very interesting, Debilitate compared to Chokeslam, as normally you'd want to block a Debilitate for at least, 5, so you don't take the on-hit. Rhea, as we mentioned, does not have the armor or the luxury at this point to block it, unless she would like to lose her whole turn. But the interesting part here is Debilitate's a -2, Might's already giving you a +1, so this Debilitate is really not getting full value. We can easily 1-card block this, or no card block this, granted going to 3 is very scary. And you don't feel the Debilitate hit as much as the Might is going to cancel it off. So I think we're going to see a block for 3 here, maybe 2.
Yeah.
A lead with the Savage Feast to draw a card and essentially make up all the value that Debilitate has taken away from us, and really going to pressure Nathan's life total, as he's only on 12 himself.
Yeah, assuming that the Riker Romp is blue, there is another possible line where Rhea can block 5 with Sin Packing and Agile, throw the Savage Feast for, she's, block for 5, throw Savage Feast, and then CNC and Arsenal, whatever she draws off of the Savage Feast off the Tunic.
Right, as the Agile Windup, most likely a blue. We obviously can't see for sure. Savage Feast, if I'm not mistaken, also costs 1, so we could see a Tunic play here, though I very doubt it. As you mentioned, most likely going to see Savage Feast pitching a blue, or actually I'm a genius, as I just said. Of course, there's a Tunic player. How would I not know this? As we're going to see a Savage Feast come through here, drawing a card, triggering the Might on the discard, and let's see, can Rhea draw a blue? And it looks like she did.
It's either that or she's playing Red Mighty Windup.
Red Mighty Windup, definitely a card. I'm going to assume it's actually yellow. I'm interested in what the benefit of this play was. The benefit of this play is that you get a Might trigger? No, you would get a Might trigger regardless. I think the benefit of this play is that you're hoping to draw a better card than the CNC in your arsenal, because unless that Agile Windup wasn't a blue, if you just pitch the Agile Windup, discard whatever you draw, and then play the CNC, I'm trying to figure out what this play changes. Maybe just wanted to get value out of the Tunic early, knowing that she's going to have to block with it soon. I'm very interested in what the logic is behind this play.
Yeah, usually whenever I see pros take lines like this, I just assume they know better than me. She has more Battle Harden wins than me, more top 8s.
Who doesn't?
So, yeah, right? That's so true.
Yeah, so I'm going to sit here in my small brain and figure out why we use the Tunic here. And maybe it's these cards being cut off. It's like cutting off the portion of my brain that I am physically unable to use. But we're going to see this last block of the Civics coming out here from Nathan. Once again, same concept as before. We're going to use it on a go again attack, knowing the next attack is coming regardless, and they're not going to have many cards to follow up with. Last time, Nathan was punished for it with the runner as we saw. This time, most likely not going to be punished, as he figures out what other cards he wants to block with, as the Sigil has come up again, number 2.
That's actually what Nathan's saying in the VOD. He's saying, if you have runner, I will concede the game. And she's laughing, saying, yeah, thank you.
Yeah, I'm sure she's laughing like, oh, Nathan, you're so funny. I love doing this every time we play. Can you hurry up and block? Because that's what I say usually when I play Nathan. As we're just going to see him ponder slowly. Chokeslam Macho, blue Chokeslam in hand. Tunic not up, so most likely not going to be able to make any fancy plays here. If I had to guess, we're going to see a block for 6 here. Just cover this up cleanly. Sigil in response to what he thinks is a claw, and then follow up with the CNC of his own. Unfortunately for him, he's going to be CNC'd himself, so if he does block the 6 here, he's kind of screwed, because then he has to give up his armor, his steel braid buckler, his last card to protect his arsenal, play a Sigil, and pass again, and then the ball is right back in Rhea's court.
Yeah. This is a really heads-up play from Nathan if he decides to take the 6 here to mitigate the damage of a possible Sin Packing or CNC. Or maybe he's just thinking that this is just going to be a claw after this, so he wants to block heads up. We'll have to see how he plays it.
Yeah, as Taylor just mentioned, if you decide to take this 6, and then all you see is a claw come through, and you block for 3 and just send 6, you're not going to feel too great about it. The one upside is you will be able to reap an arsenal from it, which is cool, but you'd most likely want to get all the defensive value you can, especially when you're up on health like this. You want to try to find as many opportunities as you can to keep your health high while still throwing a relevant threat back. As we just discussed, going to take the 6 and be rewarded for it, essentially, because we are going to see a block for 6, a play of Sigil, and a CNC of her own. Unfortunately for Nathan, a CNC for 6 with no arsenal is not great, but when your opponent's at 9, it is a very big portion of their health.
Wow, it looks like he's going to try to play the red Chokeslam by pitching the Sigil and the Macho.
Right, so essentially cashing in 3 health for 3 armor in this case, so we can throw back 8 instead of 6, taking back the block now and maybe rethinking this, but I kind of do like that play. 8 is obviously putting your opponent to 1, and then it is a very, very good on-hit that disrespects your opponent's whole turn, saying you cannot gain power on any of your attack action cards, and as we see, Rhea does not have the armor to block. Nathan, though, does decide to, against this, is going to throw a CNC instead, or actually just throw a hammer and Sigil.
Yeah. That is a 2-card 7, so that's pretty good.
Yep, 2-card 7 indeed. Titan Fist going to get the +1 from having something with 3 or greater pitch going into the pitch zone. Swinging back for 4, gaining 3, only taking 6 on that turn, mitigating 3 of it with the Sigil, and still has the threat of CNC in his arsenal for every further turn coming up. Though we do see a Sen Packing in Rhea's hand, and it's going to be a Sen Packing for 7. So interesting to see what she's going to do with the swing for 4, as we see 2 no blocks in her hand and a 2 block.
Yeah. This would have been a really good turn to throw that Chokeslam, actually, looking at her hand.
Right, a Chokeslam here would have been a block for 5 and essentially do nothing, because we're going to see 2 reds in Rhea's hand. A block for 3 with the Sen Packing, a Sigil to dust off some of that damage from last turn, and we're going to see a 9-8 game here, as Rhea had life total lead for a bit, lost it, switched it back a bit. Nathan going to be up 1 to Rhea's 8, as we are going to see a Bare Fangs Wild Ride hand. Very awkward here, as 2 cards you want to play in the same turn, but obviously you can't. Rhea, though, plays it, gets the +1 from Might, hits a different card that she drew to get that Might token, and is now going to be able to Arsenal that Wild Ride, which could be just enough to finish off this game, as Wild Ride is that card that allows you to go wide. Nathan, though, going to block 9 here and send a CNC from hand, so that Wild Ride probably not going to get the turn it wishes it could have, as generally you want a Wild Ride, pitch a blue, Tunic into a claw, or Tunic into a 2-cost.
Yeah, we'll probably see him play the CNC from Arsenal, denying the value of the card in hand since she has knowledge of the Arsenal. Looking at that hand, drawing 2 no fears and 2 no blocks is not where you want to be as KO.
Right, so No Fear, new card from KO, for those who don't know. Essentially, you play this card, it blocks for 2, plus, I think, 1 for each 6 that you discard, or banish, excuse me. So you can play this No Fear, banish these 2 non-block cards, essentially turn them into 1-block cards. block out 4 here, but unfortunately that is not going to be enough to protect your arsenal, and once you banish the first set of cards, you can't banish the second set of cards. But if I'm not mistaken, I think you can play No Fear for the blanket 2 block, so Rhea is going to be able to cover 6 here, and she will redraw all the cards that she banishes.
Yeah.
Splits it
And
up here and does it a little tricky, a 2-1, 2-1. I don't know if you can actually blind cast it, but was able to make full use of her hand as Nathan is having a heart attack over there, thinking this is the funniest thing ever. As this No Fear is going to cover up CNC in a very unorthodox way. Unfortunately for Rhea, those are 2 reds in hand, so we're going to see an Arsenal or just a 3. As they're both laughing it up over there at the hilarity of that hand. Double pitching a red, just swinging for 4. Both players very much prioritizing keeping an arsenal and swinging with weapon because, you know, Rhea doing her makeshift Titan's Fist and Nathan's doing his true Titan's Fist, always valuing that arsenal to make sure they can come back with a 3-card play to finish the game.
yeah, and this hand looks like to be a great hand for that Sacred No block where you can throw Rouse into CNC and Arsenal and Macho to end the game. Because you will have Tunic up, so he might take that line, or he might actually just try to play the Macho by blocking 3 here, throwing 8 Dominate. Just having that closing power is really good.
Yeah, very interesting to be able to lead 7 into 6 here with the CNC. Pitch the buckle, show buckling blow and Macho. Pitch the buckle, playing the CNC. A 13 damage turn with Rhea at 8, while also threatening the arsenal. And then your following turn, you will have Tunic up to even play that Macho, which allows you to block 6, play a Tunic, and throw 8 Dominate back. Not looking good for Nathan, but I'm assuming one thing he needs to respect is that if he just takes this claw and goes down to 5, he is getting to that treacherous, reckless swing area where you're at 5, all of a sudden you chip down to 4, and you get single or double reckless, and you're just out of the game no matter what attack you throw back. Unless it's Dominate, to be fair, you can only play 1 there. As we're just going to see the Steel Braid Buckler thrown in front to mitigate 1 of this damage. Probably the only block I expect to see this turn from Nathan, as he's probably thinking this in his head, like, hey, let me just keep myself out of these little bit of chipped range here. Instead of going to 5, or excuse me, yeah, instead of going to 5, I'm going to go to 6. Working his way up, essentially from Reckless Swing, as he's now seen 2 of them, both in pitch.
Yeah, I completely agree. I don't think he's expecting a third one out of the deck, and I think he's aware that I don't believe there's any more No Fears. I believe she was playing 2, maybe 3. So I think this is a safe spot for him to take the dive into going into the part of the game where he can start threatening cards from hand every turn.
Yeah, so he's definitely going to need to start doing that, because as we mentioned, Rhea has been prioritizing the arsenal, really trying to look for that last bit of reprieve she can get to throw a 3+ card hand, finish this game off, but Nathan has not let her do that up until this point, as he is just being smart with his life total, being smart with his blocks, and being very smart with his armor, always making sure he is throwing back some type of threat, whether it be through raw damage, whether it be through disruption, or whether it just be through pure value on the hammer, trying to come through and always making Rhea have to respect what's coming back, not being able to finish off this game. As we're going to see a second block come out, Nathan thinking 7 is better than 6. I don't know the real reason, but he is just being conservative with his life total because of Reckless Swing, as we're going to most likely see this rouse into CNC turn with the Macho Grande going into Arsenal, as you mentioned before, Tyler.
Yeah, and unlike the turn before, she actually drew a perfect 12 blocking hand. If I think Rhea would have drawn her 4 block hand, this game could have definitely gone a very different path this turn.
Yeah, that No Fear hand versus this hand would probably have just been game over on the spot. The interesting part here, though, is we're going to see a few cards that Rhea can really turn in our favor. The first being Clash of Agility. So the Clash is going to come out. Both players are going to reveal cards. If Rhea is able to get a free Agility token going in to her Tunic turn, it would be a huge advantage. Unfortunately, we couldn't see the Clash as it was off screen. I'm going to assume it was a wash. Players most likely tied. As we're going to see the next attack come through from Nathan, most likely to be that CNC.
Yeah, then from here, her being at 4, which is usually going to be a kill on Macho with Tunic, because Tunic's going to block for 1, and I believe she has no fears, so I think he's thinking that this Macho might be able to end the game.
Yep, this Macho should be able to end the game based off life totals at the moment, as you mentioned. A block for 3, a block for 1, that's 4. 8 minus 4 is 4. I can do that math even, and
That
I'm
was
not very
impressive.
smart. I thank you. It was in the gifted child program. As we're going to see the Wild Ride come out here. Hopefully it hits the go again, so we can come in for 6. Tunic coming for 3. 9 damage is obviously just 2 more than what Nathan has, so just a block for 3 would let him live at 1. But as we mentioned before, Nathan's not really at 6. He's kind of at like 3 right now, because if he starts taking damage and going into that Reckless Swing range, the game can be over even on his own turn.
Yeah. But also with the dominate effect, if she draws 2 Reckless Swings, which I do believe that they were pitched within 4 cards of each other, there is a slight chance that she can miss on the Reckless.
Right, there is a slight chance you can miss on the Reckless. There's also the chance that she's just not able to cast both of those cards if it does have Dominate, as you're only able to block with 1 from hand. So
true.
Nathan gonna have to think, if I put myself at 4, I'm safe to throw this Macho back. I can block for 6. I can Tunic this Macho, and I'll be good to go. It'll be interesting to see. But what is also interesting is that even just a Reckless Swing and a Tunic block, which Rhea's going to get her value out of the Claw right now, is good enough to keep her alive for 1 turn, as we'll see the Tunic come in for the block of 1, a Reckless for 4, that's 8 on 5, live at 1, and all of a sudden Nathan just put himself into lethal range without knowing it, and then that second Reckless Swing might be able to finish it up on another turn. As we're going to see the Tunic Claw here, so Rhea is going to get her last inch of value out of this Tunic, swinging for 3, and now has it on the defensive for when she's trying to keep herself alive. As we're going to see Tunic into Macho Grande, and I can't imagine we see anything else.
Yep. Wow, what a game.
What a game, as it looks like this is going to be GG. An attack for 8, a block for 4 is all I see. I'm trying to look and peek at the hand and see if I can make out anything else, but I think this is going to be exact damage from Nathan Crawford. A block for 4 with the Tunic, 8 on 4, and that game is going to be over. As we're going to see Nathan Crawford finish up that game. I think this is from his perspective, an average value of 13.83 versus the KO, so was able to keep tempo, was able to keep life parity, and then was able to finish it with everybody's favorite, Macho Grande.
Yeah. That was a great game by both players. Some crazy plays. Taking the Starstruck was definitely a highlight of the game, and then throwing back 16.
Yep, covering up a CNC with a no fear, interesting as always. We're going to kick it back to the cameras over here. But a great game from both, as you mentioned. Probably a matchup we'll see a lot coming up at the Pro Tour in Los Angeles. We will see lots of Brute Guardians, Brute Warriors, matchups all between, new cards like No Fear and New Armor that we saw coming out that game with the Balance of Justice, the Bonebreaker Gauntlet, all the new cards, all the new shininess that Brute has got. I don't hope to see Brute at the top, but I'm sure we will, and I'm sure you don't as well, as we are totally not playing Brute at the Pro Tour, and neither are you. Nobody's playing it. It's not a good deck, as we just saw it lose. But I'm going to kick it off to Taylor to say any shout-outs he wants to give. And,
Nope.
yeah. No shout-outs. So Taylor's on a team, I think. It's like Team On Hit, took your expletive. I can't remember the exact name of it, but it's a good team of good players. I'm sure you could ask him about it, but he doesn't want to shout them out. So I'm not going to get in the middle of that drama. But thank you, everybody, for watching. I'm Vero. This is Taylor Crawford. Thanks for watching the ArcLight League Week 4.
Welcome to week 4 of the ArcLight League. I'm Casanova, joined by DM Armada, and we got a great matchup for you today. It is going to be Matt versus Lucas, KO versus Aelia, and let's just jump right into it, Armada. We've got these two going at it. Matt is undefeated so far and going to be on this KO to kick things off. How have you been feeling about the matchup between KO and Aelia?
This is one of those theoretical matchups that you look at from the Aelia side and you say, okay, I have disruptive tools. I have ways to maybe slow the game down or keep the KO at bay. But the thing about KO is he's just a really good numbers deck. And if you don't find the right recipe of disruption, he can just roll you over. So if I'm picking one of these seats to sit in, I'd prefer to be the KO side. I've got all that beautiful equipment that I can block with and I can throw big numbers. But let's see how it unfolds.
Yeah, it's definitely that recipe for success you're looking through with the disruption, right? Because KO actually has such great ways to play around so many different forms of the disruption, right? You get Seek and Destroyed or Inertia. KO usually has a good time just dumping his whole hand either through blocks or just playing them out in a mid-range fashion. He can play off of Arsenal very easily. So, and then even if you go for something like Redden the Ledger and stop him from his go wide turns, he can just go tall with something like a Bear Fang. So definitely a lot of ways to get around the things that can be very nasty. The more kind of single focus decks, whereas KO has a lot of like modularity in the way he can play. But Fatigue Shot is a good start at the very least, because unless you fully block this out, KO's turn completely gets shut down.
Yeah, this is one of those cards that has been creeping back into Aelia lists for specifically this matchup and a few others, because it really does have that powerful on hit that slows down the generation of might tokens and the overall effect of KO. Not being able to discard and actually hit those sixes is a huge play.
Yeah, and so we're going to see this 11 immediately. It is just going to be undominated, and it is coming in with, some additional blood rot if it's not able to be blocked out. I think in general, though, don't lose too much by trying to full block this. I guess we do have, I guess there was a Cast Bones I see in the graveyard, so maybe this is a bunch of might on the stack here for KO. He wants to actually have a big turn and maybe just has to end up ignoring the Fatigue Shot, and we actually see him just taking that 8.
Yeah, I think we may have jumped ahead a little bit at taking the 8 there, but as you see, look at that. I think he's got 8 might tokens and 2 agility all popping at this turn. That Fatigue Shot, I do believe Connected is going to have that next attack base half down. But man, this is going to be some big swings no matter what with the halving, because you're getting those might token triggers, and we can still go fairly wide. 3-card hand plus the Arsenal is going to be in play for Matt, sitting, as you mentioned, at 3-0, which feels quite nice going through a murderer's row of players here in this tournament.
Yeah, there's absolutely no slouches in this one, just some of the best. And you know what's really funny about Fatigue Shot affecting base power is Might does not care about your base power, so this is still an 11 coming through a Fatigue Shot. 8 might tokens as the pack hunt will just be an Intimidate plus the Go Again off of a yellow pitch, though. So it looks like the follow-up is not likely to be massive. It could just be another 2 cost, though, in this Arsenal coming off of another yellow pitch. Or Barton Cross Trap. Here's another way to do it. Get another 6 power through. So 17 after you've been Fatigue Shot.
Yeah, Fatigue Shot does a bit of work there. The card I was referring to earlier, Sleep Dart, that was on the mind. Sleep Dart's another card that might be sneaking into the meta with some of these effects that could just turn off hero abilities. But instead, that's not the card we see in the arsenal there. It is a Bolton Shot, the bread and butter card, and has been for a long time, but it's being swapped out for perhaps the best card in the deck into most decks. And with Dominate, that Red in the Ledger is going to slam down huge here.
Yeah, so even though there's spots where Red in the Ledger is not as impactful in the KO because he can just play one big attack instead of, trying to play around those go agains, if you dominate the Red in the Ledger, you can no longer actually get the value out of the block because KO's not going to have, those defense reactions. He's just going to have to throw down 1 card, and then with a 3-card hand, KO doesn't really have pumps. It's very hard for him to get value out of a 3-card hand unless he can actually utilize Go Again. Red in the Ledger going to stuff that, and Luke is going to find his way back into this game.
Yeah, 11 Dominate feels quite nice. We're going to give a value block here, perhaps thinking about it. Clash of Agility does give us an agility token, but we are unfortunately going to sacrifice that if we do swing, because we are only going to be able to play 1 action. Do keep in mind, though, if you have an instant speed discard effect, you can discard that at instant speed, so we can still do a little bit of discarding here and there with some of those great cards that can come from hand. We have ways to sort of play around this, but don't forget as well the on hit for take aim is coming across. I believe that symbol was actually denoting that the aim counter was added from the crow's nest, perhaps not the dominate.
Aim counter with the Deadeye. It was both actually. The Aelia was activated. It swapped out that bolt and shot underneath. We got the red in the ledger. Paid for the aim counter, so you actually get the discard from the Deadeye, and it is just going to be a claw as the only option here. Just claw with go again. Of course, the go again can't be utilized. I'm curious what this other card is if we've got a wind up, and we do. A wind up, very, very important on this turn.
Huge agile wind up here. Mighty wind up, agile wind up are both your options there for discarding and doing so at instant speed. And this is the best case scenario because you are setting your agility back up and not wasting it. So you're able to send a paltry 3 damage, which is blocked out. But at least you have the capacity of setting up agility and might for this next turn from the KO side.
All right, now Lucas just going to swap out to get that Rain Razors, and now the load up of the fatigue shot once again. So another just very annoying arrow. Every single turn has been a pretty annoying on hit for the side of Matt to have to deal with. And fatigue shot, while he can, try and block 10 here, it does mean that the turn will lose out on a lot of power with this agility and might, but he does go for the full block out.
I wonder if this is a Snap's turn, depending on if that card in hand is something special. Looks like it's not. It's just going to go to the arsenal. You could have maybe considered if that's like a Codex of Frailty, or if that's another arrow, maybe you want to get the extra value off of the Rain Razors because it's +2 across the board. But holding onto that Snapdragon Scalers and basically saying, I have life advantage and you have the worse hand, feels pretty good.
Yeah, absolutely. Just down to 3 cards to play with. And that was a Reincarnate in Arsenal. So a blue had been stuck there. That is not what you want to see as a KO player. And it's going to result in just this really awkward pitch into, this might and agility turn, not get any value out of the agility and ship it back over to Lucas with 4 cards to play with.
He's going to go ahead and send the Lace with Inertia coming down, which doesn't really have a huge impact here. It does mean you don't get to keep that arsenal. Double Lace, though, and Premeditate coming down. And you still get to start off with Ravenous Rabble for 4. You also reveal the top. Now, we can't see what was revealed because it's off camera here. But if it's something better than 13 Endless Arrow, that might have come across. Nevertheless, 13 Endless Arrow, pretty good.
Yeah, I mean, this is brutal too, right? This could just also be, Snaps, Bullseyes, send it again. Keep shipping him the bill at that point. And there it is, right?
Yep.
Decides no blocks. All right, well, Snaps, why don't we get another one of these coming at you, threatening that lethal immediately at the 5. So you're going to have to give something.
Now, we do have access to more equipment block, but this is just not a fantastic place to be throwing them. Like maybe you give Scabskins, Apex, and a card, and then try to keep Scowling for like a last hurrah, or maybe you just give Scowling to try and keep the breakpoints at bay. Either way, you're giving a card here just not to die. I don't feel like going down to like a super low life total of 2 or 1 even feels great against any hero, much less a hero with Dominate on a stick, basically. So let's see how he chooses to block this.
Yeah, I mean, on-demand Dominate, even this 5 right now is no longer safe. I mean, taking that 13 was already so incredibly impactful. Now, looks like just considering going down to 2, Endless Arrow back to hand, and this better be a monster turn from KO, or else this is just going to be game.
Keep in mind, too, he's got Inertia. He can't set up another turn after this. Oh, but this is the card
Blood
that
Rush.
you would hold on to. Blood Rush Bellow might be able to claw his way in there.
Yeah, but he did just discard the red Wild Ride, which I would imagine be exactly what he would want to play following this Blood Rush Bellow. And so I'm curious if there's still a strong follow-up turn here, as it is going to be just the Mandible Claw coming through.
This is 5 no-go again? No, it did.
Should have go again. That's got to be a bug.
Must be. He has the 1 action point. He's able to send the Beast Within here for 8, but that's not enough damage to put down a huge comeback. It is going to take some cards from hand, though, so there is a little bit of light there at the end of that tunnel. Have the Scowling Flush Bag available on this turn to maybe slow some damage down, but really, this is the danger. You've got to play. You've got to play around Dominate, and this is not one way to do it.
Yeah, Knock the Death Whistle just guarantees that you can get a Dominated Arrow there. It's not going to be game immediately because the Flesh Bag is available, but this does mean that there will be a Blood Rot, so you still have to save a blue for that. in order to stay alive. But Reckless Swing, okay, here's
Whoa,
the way to answer.
the casual one of Reckless Swing making it in the list and showing up there. Look, both of them chuckle a little bit because they both know how rare that card is in KO. It does make the cut here and actually pays off dividends right there.
Yeah, unfortunately, it discards the Blood Rush Bellows instead of actually hitting a 6, so doesn't deal any damage, and it looks like it kind of hurt the turn as well, as it ends up just being a Claw and Arsenal in response, and once again having to try and fade the Dominate, and there's the knock once again from
Back
Lucas.
to back. And Searing Shot is particularly deadly here because if you leak this at all, if you don't, and you have to leak it, it's just game over. 1 damage turns to 2.
And it's 7 Dominate, so unless he's got Reckless number 2 in the arsenal, Lucas is just going to take this one.
He has the
there
Reckless
is a
Swing in
Reckless,
hand,
but it was
but it's
from hand.
unfortunately not enough. And he ends up falling to the relentless pressure of Aelia. I would have said that I would have been comfortable sitting in that KO seat, but I'll tell you what. He proved me wrong and made me eat my words. Lucas Oswald goes 2-1 and gives Matt his first loss of the tournament, doesn't he?
Yeah, I mean, that was pretty brilliant. I love to see, the back-to-back turns with the strong on hits. We talked about how Red in the Ledger can be played around. A lot harder when it's dominated and you're forced to keep those cards in hand. As well as Fatigue Shot, just actually helping the math, helping it so you could race the KO. Even taking off 3 damage here or there makes all the difference in the long run. So that's going to be a pickup for Aelia as we move on with more games for the ArcLight League here in Week 4. All right, we've got our final game of the day here in the ArcLight League. I'm Casanova, joined by DM Armada, and we're going to be jumping in with Alexander versus Michael on Dromai versus Dash IE. So let's get right into it. This is a matchup that I have not played a lot myself, but I have seen plenty of these two heroes as they've been incredibly popular across the season. Dromai being, the most successful RTN hero of them all.
Yeah, that's right. If you are looking at the results as we just concluded this RTN season, she sits atop the leaderboard, but not too terribly far behind her in the Living Legend leaderboard is Dash Inventor Extraordinaire. I've played a lot of this matchup from the Dromai side of things, and it can go one of two ways. It can either be a steamroll for the Dromai player, or it can get grindy down to the finish, and the Dash can just kind of basically grind you out of cards. And if we're looking at deck sizes over there, we do see that more than 60 cards have been presented from Alex's side compared to the Fatigue Dash, the Slab Dash on the other side.
Yeah, definitely Alex looking to make sure that he doesn't end up in a position where the dash can just fatigue him, kill off all the dragons, stop him. I expect to see maybe those extra cards are including something like Remembrance, which I think we've seen Dromai bring in a lot in those matchups that can lead towards fatigue. And of course, there's going to be more of that big dragon Dromai, right? Necria going to hit the board here for Alex 4.
Yeah, Necria is a proving point. The other point is Toma Fiendal and Mage Master Boots. Whenever you see Mage Master Boots across from you, you have an inkling that they're running Toma Fiendal. That's the reason that you put that combo together, and that all points to running more big dragon stuff, which does feel pretty good into the fatigue matchup. Because you're not taxing yourself and you're building this insane board if you can actually get there. And so the onus is actually on Dash to just constantly clear dragons. And the moment that they can't do that, that's when Dromai just snowballs out of control.
Yeah, and interestingly enough, I mean that's Max V. We've got some boost going here, so we thought this was likely going to be a slab dash coming out of the side of Michael, but it might actually just be kind of boost aggro coming through instead, as we see just pretty persistent boosting here, which wouldn't be what we would see on the other end. So 2 zipper hits coming through, take care of Necria, and just firing off as much damage as possible to try and just burn down this big dragon Dromai before the board state gets too crazy.
Yeah, certainly we could be looking at something that is a little bit more of that mid-range package. There's a lot of mid-range dashes going around right now that just build that boost package and have the ability to pivot back and forth depending on the matchup.
Yeah.
And so we could just see an instance here where they've sided out all of their defenses and sort of defense reactions and that sort of stuff in favor of exactly what they need to do, which is kill dragons fairly easily. But that can be fatigued in and of itself because you're boosting, and so it's gonna be a challenge, to say the least, for Michael here to claw his way through and carve out an advantage in the life total.
Yeah, and that was definitely a great turn from the side of Michael, though, being able to go for 2 zipper hits, play the Pulse Wave Harpoon, take a card out of Alex's hand, clear away Necria, and then develop a Tekla core at the end of the chain to try and just continue the pressure throughout. It looks like no popper to try and stop this turn, but it was just a couple of Ashwings, so really not too much threat just yet, and can continue to just put the pressure on with these 2 free resources.
Yeah, when you look at that turn, it's essentially a 2-card 4. You played a card to attack for 3 in Billowing Mirage, and you paid 1 for that. And then that created an Ashwing, and then you sent that Ashwing. And so it's really under rate, but the benefit is having the Ashwing long term, which is why we see him spend an entire card to remove that Ashwing by attacking for 2 here. And incidentally, it does also Combustible Courier give a nice little buff on 0 to 60.
Yeah, cool way to use that blue, right? Just because it's such a weak attack with the 2 power, but because you're able to hit it on a dragon, you then get to send it 0 for 7 on the 0 for 60, which is quite a powerful above rate attack at that point, and just going to be continuing to get efficient trades out of the pistol as well. We were talking about how fatigue is a potential way that Dromai can find the win, and the way to kind of get around that with this more mid-range to aggressive dash is to be trying to get as much value as possible out of Tekla Plasma Pistol, and just make sure that you're using these resources to get more shots instead of extra boosts, set up your future turns as well.
Yeah, life parity is something that I think you want to maintain if you're on the dash side of things. And this is an unfortunate hit. Ravenous Rabble, not a dragon. It's unfortunately a conventional attack. In this sort of matchup, I think you'd want a lot more dragons. And not only that, you're hitting a blue off the top, so it's just 2 damage. Does not feel good, and no real follow-up, but you have the 5-card hand. Let's see if Michael can kind of carve his way in and start to pressure a little bit of that life total on the side of Alex.
Sprocket Rocket hitting one of very few items that exist in the deck here. It hits the Teklo Pounder, gets the +1. Generally, we probably are actually happy to not see the Pounder on Michael's side. It can clunk up hands, even though it is still like a lot of value over the course of many turns. Just being able to create that pressure immediately is quite nice. The only time you'd like to see it is maybe when you can tutor it in instead with something like a weaker hand going alongside maybe the Spark of Genius.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. Sending the 3 damage, Expedite says no blocks, and then we go finally in with the Pulse Wave Harpoon, boosting, and that is going to force some cards to be revealed and a card to basically add to the chain, but it is most likely going to leave Dromai with a 3-card hand plus Arsenal. And look at this hand.
Ooh.
A blue Sweeping Blow and 2 Mira guys, and unfortunately those Mira guys, one of those is probably joining the combat chain right here.
Yeah, the only rough part is, you can take one of them, but that means Alex has still got another one that he's going to be able to play down onto the board. And while Dash doesn't have the most poppers of any deck, she is able to side in, quite a few. We see the payload being sided in was just boosted away. That's another 6 power. Max V, you've got throttle, you've got ways to find pops, but because you don't have that many, when you get stuff like Miragai onto the board, you get, the ability to turn off Phantasm. It becomes incredibly difficult to defend the dragons.
This is a nice heads-up play. Chooses to take the blue and put that on the combat chain as the blocking card with the idea that maybe we're starving them from resources. Dromai can run very efficiently on reds. The 3 cards were revealed out of the 4, so if the 4th card was like a really high-powered, like 2-cost dragon, then maybe you're starving them from playing the 2-dragon combo, but you have to keep in mind the arsenal is available as well.
Yeah, that definitely makes a lot of sense, right? This was revealed to be kind of, at least more so, the big dragon with the Necria earlier on, so taking that resource is quite good. And I think here it is probably quite relevant considering that was a CNC that just got pitched, so getting rid of the resources could help. But this is Miragai Chromai combo, the thing that you just dread if you've ever played against Dromai, the ability to just create the action points for free. And while it can't be utilized too much on this turn, the future is definitely rough for Michael if he cannot deal with this board state.
Yeah, this is one of those moments where you absolutely love that you have access to Plasma Pistol and Induction Chamber, because the pistol can take care of this board far easier than most other things can. And T-Bone's going to be the start off here, the name of the game. It's going to pull an equipment. The best choice here is obviously the Mage Master Boots, because you can chuck that in front of it and call it a day. Then you can just choose to take the damage, which it looks like that's what we're doing. Nevertheless, a life parity at half life is quite good from the Dash perspective, and he's doing a really good job of navigating this aggressively and not just resting on his laurels, playing back and just only clearing dragons. This is exactly how you play this matchup from Michael's side of things.
And we actually see Spark of Genius tutor out a crank item. The Protocol Red is within this Dash deck as well, so going to be able to try and recycle one of the reds from the graveyard, pull it back in to pay 2 for that, and also just getting the card draw out of Spark of Genius here and continuing the tempo of the turn. Right now, it just looks like Michael's deciding, how he wants to deal with this. Do you try and race this 17 life down? How much damage can he present on this turn? Or does he need to still try and deal with this board? Because Chromai Miragai is incredibly dangerous to leave around.
Yeah, this is perhaps the most dangerous combo that you can have on the board at any one time. So I think his decision point is, what is he going to grab from the graveyard here to allow him to both deal with both of these using Teklo plus the other cards in his hand, and also continue to push damage, because you have a life lead and you have a full equipment suite. Well, full in some aspects,
sure,
that can help you block that board to some degree and deal with it on your own turn. And in that moment, how do you best get to that, navigate of this turn cycle to get to that point where you're still out ahead? And if you can do that, I think Michael's in a really good position here over Alex. It just depends on how he manages this turn cycle.
Well, and we do see him grab the red 0 to 60. We saw him play that earlier. That's a great way to line up into Miragai. Pistol can deal with Chromai, as you mentioned earlier. So it does seem like that is going to be the play line that we're going to see. And then we'll see if there's actually more damage that can be represented afterwards as well.
Ooh, look at this. He's sending this to face. He's deciding not to send it at the Miragai here. Maybe he has plans for the Miragai later down the road. Maybe he is full committing. I mean, he has his opponent at 16 life, a 4-card effective hand. They only have 1 blocking equipment here. I wonder if his thought is maybe blood in the water. Let's just go straight for the face. But to me, that seems like a dangerous proposition with this combo on the board.
Yeah, it feels like maybe he's got Max V available to actually be played out. I think that was the second boost. Now he gets Protocol Red once again. Maybe get the third boost with that same exact 0 to 60 as he played previously. And maybe there's actually just a Max V available, and that's actually a way to threaten enough damage that you force Dromai to block out and not get nearly as much value out of the Chromai Miragai combination.
Yeah, it could be that he's just, saying to himself, I'm going to play out this, what it turns out to be, an 18 damage turn, something like that, maybe more with the Teklo Plasma Pistol wound in there, 20 damage turn, and just say, here's lethal, you deal with it, give me cards from hand, and then next turn I'll take care of Chromai and Miragai. Perhaps that's the thought process here. Boosting away, though, his deck's basically at half now at this point.
Yeah, he's getting close. So he's definitely looking for that kill. We do see the 060 once again. So this is the third boost of the turn, which means it's got to be Max V. We've got the Tekla Foundry Heart, 2 resources available there. Max V probably going to be the play. And then, oh no, it's just a Pulse Wave Harpoon for now.
This is still going face. This is still going to just rip a card as well, guaranteed to do so, which means he's at 1 card. We can assume it's like a 3 block plus a 2 on Flamescale Furnace. So he's going to be leaking even more damage after this if the card in hand happens to be a max. Well, it can't be a Max V now at this point. It's only 1 resource left, and we've already used Foundry Heart. So maybe he's just trying to push as much damage as possible.
I'm very interested by this because for me, this screamed maximum velocity, and it just wasn't there at the end for Michael. But he still pushed quite a bit of damage. This was, I believe, it was 16 damage, and then now the pistol shots.
Yeah.
So 18. Hey, you said earlier an 18 damage turn. I mean, that's what this was.
Yep.
He still deals with Dromai, pulls 3 cards from hand. I mean, it was a very successful turn, but that deck size has continued to dwindle down to 27 cards for Michael.
And the other argument here is he knows the Arsenal, right? He knows that the Arsenal is the second Mira guy that he didn't rip from hand. And so if he gets him to a 1-card hand and 1 an Arsenal, then what is he afraid of? What, a double Mira guy on the board? That's not that threatening. And as you saw, the cards that he gave up an E-Strike, and there played a Sigil of Solace. So that hand essentially just turned into nothing, take 2 damage, and he's still sort of in the lead. So even if it's not a maximum velocity, he's feeling pretty good about the way that cycle played out.
Yeah, now this time around, he gets 3 boosts again. I mean, 2 floating. It's usually signaling something, but of course, this would have just been a natural pull for Michael. And if he did, I mean, that's an absolutely massive turn, right? 21 damage on that natural draw. If this is a Max V behind the Twin Drive. And it's going to have to be somewhat blocked out because that would threaten exactly lethal at that point. Kyloria just going to immediately hit as the block. Alex still wants to take a little damage, try and trade back with this 3-card hand, including Arsenal, knowing that one of them is Mira Guy, of course, makes it a lot weaker. But 1 card left, 1 AP, 2 floating.
Yep.
Foundry Heart. Okay.
There's the Foundry Heart. That means we can Tekla Plasma Pistol here. We can fire that induction chamber and then maybe still send the Max V, but we're always threatening it, which means that they're giving cards up front as well, which is nice.
Yeah, just so much pressure. Probably just have to take the pistol, see if Michael actually has the threat he's been presenting, or if you can still get away with this 3-card hand and try and get something back.
This is a matchup that we could very well see come into play here at the Pro Tour coming up, because both of these decks are well thought of. And there it is, maximum velocity. He had it all the time. He never not had it, let's be honest, right?
Yeah, I mean, it's like he totally had it last turn, but actually he had it this turn. It needed to come off the top this time around, jump through way less hoops, just the natural Twin Drive with the throttle, with the blues necessary to make it happen. And Alex could have to give up armor, drop down to 6, only have this little 2-card hand, this little dinky hand to play with. And now it's just down to, can Alex survive this onslaught for these last 20 cards? It's going to be Tome, which is just not exactly what you wanted to see when being threatened with that much damage.
Tome is such an interesting play there because it doesn't net you anything except this. The gold pop is really all it lets you do. Of course, you can play... Wow, and he finds a Dromai. And he has the ability to play Mira Guy number 2 if he chooses to, which is still sitting in Arsenal. But that was the only out that you actually had access to, is getting resources to pop gold and play from there. But that's essentially all that this turn is going to equate to. I mean, yes, he could consider sending Mira Guy. It looks like he is going to send Mira Guy. Ask for a card. If you get your opponent off of a 4-card hand, maybe you have some windows here.
Yeah, I mean, I guess he's just got to kind of send everything, right? He's just slowly going to try and chip away at Michael and hope that he can get to the point where he can pull something away. But now, Michael just going to filter with Crown of Providence, try and find a hand that can threaten over the numbers once again, try and leak even more damage because there's only 6 life left for Vor. But of course, just have to keep watching that number next to Michael's face over there, that deck at 20.
Now, this is good. He actually started with Mira Guy because he theoretically, like, you can obviously play the second one out, but if they're going to shoot the Dromai for 2 on their turn, you might as well take a full card from them rather than 1 resource from the Tekla Plasma Pistol. So you get your value out of the 2 damage from Mira Guy first with no Phantasm, then send the Dromai, have it get popped, in that case by a Max V, and then play a second Mira Guy.
Yeah, it's perfect. And that's third max V down. One was boosted away very early on. We've seen two of the backup protocols already. So I'm curious if there is a third in the list or not for Michael to be able to try and get a max V back, potentially to try and push over the numbers once again. We've seen a high octane boosted, but I don't know how many are left. I think maybe one or two. So still potential ways for Michael to get over the top.
Yeah, Alex here, I think, is in full defense mode on that turn, but Michael assessed the situation correctly and noticed that he has 17 cards left in deck to the 40 that are in Alex's deck, and his win condition is stacking up damage. So he, instead of continuing to play out, he arsenaled the card and is trying to set up a 5-card hand. He's going to use his life as a resource, take all of this, and try to close things out off the back of a 5-card hand with your opponent at 6.
Yeah, he's got one preload on the pistol as well. Doesn't have anything on the induction, but still, as you said, right? 5-card hand, try and push over 6. Usually in Flesh and Blood, a hand blocks for 12, but Dromai actually has a lot of 2 blocks, and we've only seen one of those tomes. This is Crown of Dominion. This could be 3 tomes in the deck. Could find
True.
some non-blocks that Michael tries to push over. So Alex, of course, just praying that he can find a bunch of 3 blocks in this next hand to deal with the 5-card hand, because if he can live this one, his board state actually is going to be able to present enough pressure.
Exactly. That playing that Asvali and that Yindar on this turn are massive. Oh, but this is what you were just talking about. High Octane coming out here is absolutely huge. It may mean if we have blues in hand, which we've been pitching, we can send Teklo. We can clear the board if we want to, or we could just play Twin Drive and send everything face.
Yeah, so that's going to be 2 action points off of the Twin Drive as well, because the High Octane does just mean, as you were talking about, the pitched blues that are here, being able to just one resource, fire the pistol, not needing the go again from the induction chamber. And it makes the block so awkward as well, because even if you can block 3, it's coming in for 2 at a time, and it makes it just so difficult to deal with.
Yeah, this is a dangerous turn, and we could see the game get closed out right here, depending on what is left in hand. We're going to send 2 Tecloplasma pistols. Well, it depends on the resources, really. It could be 3 just straight up, but we could also see 2 plus whatever else card is in hand as well.
Yeah, so it was another blue pitch, though, so at the very least, got this one, got maybe one more, unless it's something like a throttle, which would just be able to do it at the end, but it's going to be one more shot, could be one more afterwards, and only 1 card to block with.
He's going to take this. Yeah, theoretically, the value of your card there in hand costs, blocks for 3. So if they're going to present an attack for 3, you want to be able to block there. Yeah, look at this.
It's a tome,
Oh, he has a
isn't
tome
it?
in hand. He
It's
had
a
to have the tome
tome.
in hand. One of the only non-blocks. You could obviously play Sigil. Can you believe it? That is so well executed by Michael. I'll tell you right now, I was in no way, shape, or form expecting the game to unfold so expertly as it did with Michael in the driver's seat on Dash. He showed exactly how to play that matchup from that sort of switchboard style, and I'm blown away by how he executed that. It was quite expert.
He made it so quick, and it was off of the back of 2 really impressive turns, right? The first one being able to cycle through those 2 backup protocols just to keep grabbing 0 to 60 red, because you're just throwing 4, 4, 4. You've got the breakpoint over and over and over again. He was able to throw out, I think it was 18 damage on that turn, follow it up with a 21 damage max V turn. And Dromai, of course, having those 2 blocks, having the non-blocks that exist, it lets you just leak through enough damage, not having to care about the dragons when you're presenting so much. I really, really love that play, Michael, in a matchup that's not always been so incredibly good for Dash. A lot of times Dromai can just take control.
Exactly, and that's the big sort of tipping point, I think, because Dromai now being so well represented in the RTN season is sort of what everyone's looking at to maybe target or maybe just expect to play into going forward until she LLs. And, well, if you want to play Dash, that is a good way to explain how to do it. That's pretty impressive.
All right, and with that, that'll be it for week 4 of the ArcLight League. So make sure that you tune in next week, as we've got plenty more amazing Flesh and Blood action. We'll see you all next time.